Bob Ricker es un hombre cambiado. Una caída que lesionó una porción de su cerebro ha transformado su personalidad.
It's like you're not 51 anymore, you actually get reversed and you're only 15 again. And I want to play. There's nobody to play with, so she gets it. I can't go out. I can't go down to my friend's house because he's not 15 anymore either. And he's working.
Many times I've said to him, you've got to think about how old you are. But he doesn't. He doesn't have a clue, like he said. He does not feel 51. That's a good thing. I wished I could feel that way. But sometimes depending on my day at work, it's very tiresome to come home to a teenager.
La naturaleza de las cosas, con David Zuzuki. Mi cerebro y yo. ¿Quién soy? ¿Qué constituye el yo que parece flotar en el fondo de todos mis pensamientos conscientes? Los científicos han aprendido mucho sobre la parte del cerebro en la que se procesan los colores. Se transforman los sonidos en sinfonías. Los movimientos en danza. Y sobre los mecanismos que no solo le dan forma a lo que escribimos, sino a cómo lo escribimos, leemos y lo comunicamos a otros.
Good evening from the high road to the low road. What a difference a day makes.
Pero ¿pueden los científicos explicar los niveles más altos en el pensamiento y comportamiento humano? Donde el deseo se transforma en amor. Los planes se vuelven acciones. ¿Y donde las experiencias se vuelven recuerdos? ¿Los científicos pueden explicar qué nos hace ser lo que somos? ¿Ser o no ser? He ahí el dilema.
Hello. Hi, sweetie. Now watching the train. An hour already? All right. Okay, sweetie, I'll be on my way home.
March 19th, 1998, Thursday. Well, it's your big day today for coming home. It has also been 5 weeks today since you have been in the hospital. I have to say, you have no emotions at all. I am sorry for being frustrated, but it is very hard to deal with a person I don't even know anymore. Tonight I slept on the couch, and after you being away for 5 weeks, it did not bother you in the least. I don't know how to get through to you. You do not show any emotion to me at all. No kisses, no hugs, or I love yous.
La interpretación de nuestros propios estados emocionales y de los que nos rodean es una parte fundamental en casi todas las interacciones humanas. El neuropsicólogo canadiense Donald Stoss hace investigaciones con personas que tienen lesiones en una parte del cerebro que se ubica directamente detrás de la frente. Su trabajo presenta evidencias intrigantes de cómo el lóbulo frontal le da forma a nuestro comportamiento e identidad. Stoss se reunió en Boston con su colaborador Michael Alexander.
Okay, so here's the question I have. We've talked about your patient, we've talked about the patient that was at rounds today. The question is, can you reduce this idea of a change in self, to a personality even, to such a degree based solely on brain damage? In other words, can you reduce mind to brain?
It seems to me that discussions of what makes up a person as opposed to a brain is really better captured in, the language of philosophy and maybe even religion than it is in terms of neurology. I don't think I know the right words to use it, but to describe it. But having said that, yes, I personally believe that if we only understood the transformations that we need to make, that mind and person are reducible to brain, absolutely.
It's clear, and I think we've demonstrated that if you have damage to the brain, there is clearly something that has happened to the person.
Bob Ricker trabajaba como camionero y era un esposo cariñoso. Hace 4 años se resbaló y se cayó desde su techo. Gran parte de su lóbulo frontal sufrió un fuerte daño. Asombrosamente, antes de desmayarse, se subió a su camión y condujo por la ciudad a la hora de mayor tráfico. Aunque la lesión de Bob ha cambiado su vida radicalmente, para quienes no lo conocen bien, parece normal.
I've had some friends, they say that they don't notice anything different. Maybe they're just being polite.
Patients like this look perfectly normal. They'll respond, they'll even seem to enjoy interacting with you and laugh at things. And it's because what the damage to the frontal lobes does not impair. It does not impair what we call the general operations of the brain. The problem is at a higher level.
Hey, sweetie pie. Gotta do my list for the day.
Sweetie.
What do you want me to do? Besides make the bed, vac the floors, dust the furniture, go to the post office.
He certainly, on encountering him, is in the great range of normal. He's not particularly more or less quirky than any of a number of people that we all know. But Mrs. Ricker knows him much better, and she's much clearer about the person he used to be and the person he is now.
Right.
Imagine someone who had previously been warm, interested, supportive, humorous, now is just humorous. Drop the warm, drop the responsive, drop the supportive. Well, that's a big difference when you live with it.
I think that's it, because you're probably watching movies.
I don't have that much to do.
La habilidad de empatía con los demás es provocada por las sustancias químicas presentes en el cerebro. El carácter cariñoso y solidario de Bob se eliminó junto con el tejido que una vez formó parte de su lóbulo frontal. Al estudiar pacientes con lesiones en el lóbulo frontal, Donald Stoss descubrió lo difícil que es explicar científicamente algo tan abstracto como el cambio de personalidad.
You give them IQ tests. IQ tests are often perfectly normal. You give them tests of vision, other things, they're perfectly fine. And yet somehow they are not the same people. And that's what the families describe.
Hey, Dr. Stuss.
How you doing?
How are you
You're
today?
fine. Good to see you.
Seeing you again.
And?
Dr. Stuss is my wife, Paula.
Oh, nice to meet you. It's a real pleasure. Good. How you feeling?
I'm fine.
Good. We got work to do?
Let's go inside so
see
we
you
can
again.
be comfortable.
Good. I think it's a gorgeous day.
It sure is.
I want to take some pictures from your past life and you've given us some of them, and I just want to show them to you. I want you to describe them to me and tell me what you know about them.
This is a good one. This is a picture, even without my glasses, it's pretty good. My grandparents used to have a cottage down in Hummerock, and we used to always have cookouts, and it was a lot of fun.
Right.
All the family is there.
Now you said
Aunts,
that
uncles, cousins, friends.
you said that that was a happy time. When you look at it now, does that bring back those happy memories? Like, can you feel them now? You do sense them now.
Well, I don't feel. I just know it's a pleasant memory.
You just know it's a
I
pleasant
don't
memory.
get the joyful feeling. I don't think I've had it in a long time.
Since
The accident. Because it's
they'll
part of
tell
the
you
problem is I don't-
that I remember that, but I have no feelings for it. And when I first had patients describe this to me, I thought that they were faking. What they were describing to me was a real phenomenon, but I refused to believe it, saying, how could that be possible? How could you have that memory of somebody who's close to you in the family and yet have no feelings for it? It's because it was disconnected.
Paula brought up an interesting point. And I'm not going to go into a lot of details because I'll get whapped. But to give you an example of how I used to feel, when she got upset, I got upset. I don't get upset anymore. I know she's upset, and it's probably not the best terminology to use, but it's almost like I don't care. When she says that I don't have the emotions and be able to pick up on her emotions, she's very right. I don't. There's a big piece missing.
Eso que falta son las delgadas fibras que una vez conectaban el lóbulo frontal de Bob con los centros emotivos de su cerebro. Han desaparecido sus sentimientos, su empatía y su compasión, los cuales influían en su personalidad cuando se casó con Paula pocos años atrás.
To be honest, the first time I met him, I thought he was quite sarcastic. And then as I got to know him as a very caring, loving person, cared about how you as a person felt. We became very good friends. We were always joking, laughing. We would talk for hours. I mean, we could talk about everything. I don't have that luxury anymore with him. I don't have it. So I've lost a friend, but we get through.
I'm getting upset.
So I'll be all right.
Would you kiss me on TV?
One of the ironies of Mr. Ricker's circumstance is that he's less bothered by it than most everyone around him who cares for him. And so it isn't clear who we're treating. Are we treating him, or are we treating people who are distressed by the way he's changed?
It's almost like the Bob that I knew is sleeping. And maybe someday he'll wake up.
I know she wants me to be back the way I was, and so would I. But I'm happy.
The way
So
he is.
I don't feel unhappy because I don't know or notice or pay attention to what's going on. So I don't know why she's upset. I'm having a good time. Why don't you?
He's not simply immature. He's lost a capacity of modulated behavior that he had developed through teenage and adult life. You know, much as someone with a different kind of injury might lose language abilities that they developed through adult life. But the consequences of it aren't terribly dissimilar to a preteen or early teenage person who is just at the stage where they're learning to recognize and respond to their emotional states.
Aunque los centros emotivos se forman al nacer, el lóbulo frontal alcanza su madurez plena en la adultez, lo cual explica por qué los adolescentes parecen tomar el control de sus emociones cuando crecen. También es claro el peso que tienen los padres y profesores en la neuroarquitectura que se forma dentro de ellos.
So you have to put yourself, yeah, you have to put yourself into their position.
Esta es una lección que Donald Stoss aprendió mucho antes de convertirse en científico.
I was a high school teacher. It was at the time when this idea of left brain, right brain, let the children be free and open up the schools and let the, children learn on their own. I, as a teacher, realized that that's not the way I taught. I started to read and realize that there was a Russian theorist, an educational theorist called Vygotsky, whose theory of education was the way I taught. And the idea is that there is an area of the brain called the frontal lobes that regulate behavior. In children, this isn't developed. And what one has to do then is to, in one sense, become the frontal lobes of the child. Then, as the child grows, the educator becomes less and less of the frontal lobes of the individual, and the person's own frontal lobes take over to regulate themselves. This is your front part of the brain. This is your back. And now these are called the frontal lobes from an area from about here. These are not called the bactal lobes, but they're divided up into sections. Back in here, you would have an area called the occipital lobes. You'd have an area in here called the parietal lobes. And this section called the temporal lobe. What's important here is what you get in this area is vision occurs back in here. You'll get at the front part of this sensation and hearing. But in each of these areas, so vision is here, sensation is here, hearing is here, information goes forward to one of these areas, and whatever they come up with goes to the frontal lobes. So every perception, every sensation, every thought has access to the frontal lobes. It's an extremely important concept. But this area of the brain also is connected with feeling.
Muchas de nuestras acciones y comportamientos son inducidos por nuestros sentimientos. Se originan en la parte más antigua del cerebro, conocida como el sistema límbico. Mientras nuestros sentidos exploran el mundo recogiendo detalles y percepciones, esta información pasa hacia adelante donde está el lóbulo frontal. Cuando algo inesperado ocurre, el lóbulo frontal cobra vida y se comunica con el sistema límbico para que éste responda apropiadamente. Cuando recibe los sentimientos, la parte pensante del lóbulo frontal procesa su significado. El resultado puede ser reír, gritar o hasta salir corriendo. Este complejo sistema que involucra millones de neuronas nos da las herramientas para interpretar, reflexionar y responder al mundo que nos rodea. Pero, ¿qué pasa cuando nuestro lóbulo frontal no entiende nuestras emociones? ¿Aún podemos interpretar el significado de los eventos que se presentan ante nosotros o sentir el peligro cuando aparece imprevistamente?
A few years back, I met this guy, Tony, at the YMCA, and we went for a coffee one night, and then because it was late, he told me he was being a very good gentleman. This is what his grandfather told him, and he accompanied me home, and then he came up into my apartment and refused to leave, and I only got him to leave after 3.5 months.
Durante toda su vida, Christina Buffy ha tenido problemas juzgando la intención de los demás. Es como si careciera de instintos que la alertaran ante la presencia de sospechosos o que le indicaran en quién puede confiar.
When she was living on her own, she would speak to people on the street that were construction workers and tell them her life story, and she would invite people to her apartment that she didn't really know, and she'd have cameras stolen and different things.
I've made a lot of mistakes with my judgment, and I've always wondered why.
When Christina was born, she was a very healthy baby, and she was the kind of child that did everything right, and she was just perfect. By the age of 7, she started to seizure. And then things started to change because she ended up in the hospital for 3 months because they could not control the seizures. They were that bad. And her personality changed then too. She was a different little girl.
Okay, Christina, we're going to start with the task now. Just remember, when you see the target, to press button 1, and for any other stimuli, to press button 2. You ready?
Christina fue referida al Centro Baycrest de Toronto, el cual es uno de los pocos institutos en el mundo que se especializa en anomalías en el lóbulo frontal. Las pruebas confirman que años de ataques epilépticos le han pasado factura a una porción del lóbulo frontal derecho.
When you did have problems with judgment, tell me how that happened. Like, and was it because you were just distractible, or you didn't care, or how did you feel when you made a bad judgment? Tell me about it.
People seem to come out of the woodwork where I was concerned. It's usually because I don't want to hurt somebody's feelings at the beginning, and where I should actually tell them where to go. And then I find myself in too deep.
Con la ayuda de su prometido Rowie y la responsabilidad de atender a su bebé, Christina es menos vulnerable al acercamiento de extraños, pero los problemas siguen presentándose.
You were being followed from the subway, this guy? Why did you let him in first place?
Because he was following me home, and I couldn't turn around and say to him,
What?
Please stop following me.
Why not?
Because he told me how sensitive he was.
How what?
How sensitive he was, and he said if anybody got angry at him, he'd burst out crying.
My God. You really believed him? Why, you couldn't stand the guy crying?
Los infantes no pueden controlar sus emociones. Esto se debe a que las conexiones que llevan las señales del sistema límbico al lóbulo frontal deben crecer. En el caso de Christina, esas conexiones se dañaron, por lo que se le dificulta controlar sus emociones e interpretar su significado.
I have gone through many learning the hard way.
The reason for emotions is they tell you it's good or bad. In the past, if you've learned something, you just say, whoa, that's bad. I'm not going to do it again, because your emotional reactions would say, not a good thing. But she clearly isn't picking up on those. It's as if it's a new situation and she just responds. Judgment is impaired on the basis, first of all, of her intellectual meaning the frontal lobe thinking processes, but it's also impaired because she's not getting the proper feedback from her emotional sense. We also see that sometimes when her emotion is triggered, there often is no tempering mechanism, there's no thermostat, it just goes.
When we were watching the talented Mr. Ripley. I don't know if people here have seen it. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I have seen it.
Yeah, it's very, he has some very barbaric behavior. And very, the movie wasn't at all what I expected. I thought it was going to be a love triangle.
Yeah.
And
I thought it was going to have
when he clobbers this guy, I just broke out laughing hysterically.
Like that?
in the theater?
No, I saw that video. I saw it here. My mother looked at me and she said, "You have a very warped sense of humor, or morbid sense of humor."
Because he clobbered the guy?
Yes.
What's so funny about that? Is it the way he did it, or what?
That's not a very good solution to your problem. And sometimes just like right now.
Okay, that set her off now.
Oh no, my God! You got an earplug?
Sometimes when I start laughing, I can't stop.
It's a release, I think.
Your frontal lobe filters when it's appropriate to use your emotions, such as laughter, or depression, or sadness, or mourning, and when it's not, and like how to use it, or when to use it, and to what extent to use it. And this happens to me quite often.
I think her emotions are triggered easily, sometimes.
The right part of the frontal lobe is, to me, the most fascinating part because it's important for understanding discourse, irony, sarcasm. It appears to be important for what we call theory of mind, this ability to take a perspective of somebody else, for me to understand you.
Little tiny window.
But you forgot to tell about the big door that went outside. We had a walkout from the basement, remember?
So it could have been
We
very
didn't
easy.
have just little tiny windows to crawl through.
Could have been much easier if you went through the door.
It's important for humor. Not all kinds of humor. So you can have right frontal lobe damage and people will get the sarcastic humor, but they won't understand the subtleties of humor.
Nuestro lóbulo frontal combina lo que sentimos con lo que pensamos, y no hay lugar donde esto se haga más evidente que en un local donde se presentan comediantes.
Dolphins. I've had a chance to travel all across Canada this year, ladies and gentlemen, and I can tell you, this is the question on everyone's lips here in our bilingual country. Do French people think the song We Are the Champions is about mushrooms?
Es lo ilógico y los giros inesperados lo que nos hace reír.
Because that could be confusing to a French person. Nous sommes les champignons. He's crazy, that Freddy. He's fungus. I don't mean to brag. I'm sorry. I just got this watch. I'm excited. I can go 200 meters below the water with this watch. I'll know exactly what time it is and my head explodes, and I think that's important.
Donald Stoss y sus colegas sometieron voluntarios a pruebas humorísticas para mostrar que el lóbulo frontal derecho se encarga de procesar los chistes. Las personas con daños en esta zona no pueden reconocer la doble intención que algunos contienen. Cuando se les presentaron opciones para el final de muchos chistes, a estas personas les pareció que los mejores eran los más lógicos.
I'm excited. I can go 200 meters below the water with this watch. Hey, I'll know exactly what time it is when I'm swimming.
whenever I say the word go, the two words go. So anytime after you hear the word go, you can just let it. Anytime after you hear the word go. If you hear the word go, you just let it, okay, darling? Anytime.
Para entender un chiste, se ponen en juego una serie de interacciones complejas de pensamientos y sentimientos. Es una experiencia individual, pero que por lo general compartimos con otros. El deseo de estar con otros, de socializar, es uno de los impulsos más fuertes que hay, y quizás sea la razón de la rápida evolución de nuestro lóbulo frontal. Este ocupa la tercera parte de nuestro cerebro y es mucho más grande y desarrollado en humanos que en los otros primates. Donald Stoss cree que el lóbulo frontal empezó a crecer más cuando nuestros ancestros empezaron a vivir en grupos más grandes.
The size of the frontal lobe, the evolutionary development and the development of a child, all strongly suggest that the frontal lobes are key to what defines us as humans, to make the appropriate judgments, to live in appropriate harmony with others, to understand and be sympathetic to others, to judge appropriately, to be open and accepting, that all of those follow with the frontal lobe development.
Pero, ¿qué significa cuando nos sentimos menos que humanos? Para millones de personas que sufren de depresión, no existe la alegría de estar con otros, ni ningún pensamiento feliz que ilumine su estado de ánimo.
It's something that you have to accept that you're going to have to fight every day. When I'm really, really depressed, sometimes I clean frantically, because if I don't keep moving, I feel as though I'll never move again. There are many things I do, but as you spiral down, the worse it gets, the less effective these things are.
Hi, Virginia. I'm Helen Mayberg. Thank you so much for coming to talk to me about our study. What we're trying to do is we're trying to get a handle on what areas of the brain basically control the sad experience that's such a major part of everyone's depression. I need you to be willing to let me make you sad and for you to let me to take a picture of it while it's happening.
Imagínense escribir sus emociones más oscuras para luego evocarlas. Es una forma que usan los científicos para entender el balance entre los pensamientos y los sentimientos, el cual varía fácilmente durante la depresión.
Depression for me started when I was 15, but I didn't realize it was depression. Nobody talked about mental illness in those days, and I just thought I was a lousy person. I didn't think I had an illness. And it got substantially worse through my 20s, and I wasn't diagnosed till I was 27. And at the time I was working as a technician in the laboratory at Johns Hopkins Medical School, and I swallowed cyanide, sodium cyanide, and it's I calculated carefully how much I needed so that I wouldn't have a very painful gastric reaction. And it just meant that I just passed out and would have died had I not been found. But I was found. I was surrounded by doctors and residents, and they had a very good crash team. And then I woke up in intensive care. So, you know, I was very lucky, but I didn't particularly feel lucky at the time. You know, I wished that it had been a success.
¿A dónde van las ganas de vivir de Virginia en sus momentos de mayor depresión? ¿Qué les pasa a la esperanza y la razón cuando la tristeza la ataca?
You have no motivation. You can't enjoy anything. It's as if the chemistry that normally allows you to enjoy things is turned off, and there's no point to anything. And it feels as though you're enclosed in something. You're trapped. It's a horrible feeling. It's like, I feel like it's like being encased in concrete. There's no way out. Hi.
Are you comfortable?
Okay, yeah.
Okay. Are all the points in the mask comfortable? Anything pressing or
No,
bothering
it's
you?
fine.
Good. What we're going to do now is we're going to get you aligned inside the camera. And so you're going to hear the machine move, and you'll have a laser light will come on, so I'll have you close your eyes. And so the bed's going to move in a minute.
Por primera vez, un aparato como este permite a los científicos ver el cerebro viviente en plena acción. Así pueden estudiar las experiencias cotidianas y también redefinir nuestras ideas sobre las enfermedades mentales.
By definition, we believe strongly that depression is an illness of the brain, no different from Parkinson's disease or Huntington's disease or multiple sclerosis. And in fact, it's probably less your fault than heart disease. What we're going to do, Virginia, now is we're about ready to start with the mood experiment. I'm going to bring the monitor down so that you can read your script, which I've got typed on the monitor, just like what you did. You tell me if it's easy enough to see.
It's fine. It's fine.
Okay. Remember, what I want you to do is to use the script to recreate the image in your mind of being extremely sad. The goal is to be as sad as possible, not to fight it, just let yourself go. Kevin's in the control room monitoring the cyclotron, and at the proper time he'll give you the injection of the radioactive water and we'll take the picture of your sad brain. I'm going to turn the screen off. I want you to lie there and just don't fight that sad mood. The scan will start in about 20 seconds.
Mientras Virginia se adentra en la tristeza, esta compilación de imágenes procesadas ilustra una transformación notable. A medida que Virginia siente que el significado y la motivación son succionados de su vida, el lóbulo frontal de su cerebro se apaga.
What we see is that as someone experiences intense sadness, a combination of things happens. There are areas of the brain that become highly activated that we can measure by a marked increase in brain blood flow. And at the same time, there are other areas of the brain that become inactive or deactivated. And it's this balance between increased activity in what turn out to be some of the oldest and deepest structures in the brain, in the limbic system, the emotional centers of the brain, we think, and turning off of our higher cognitive areas, predominantly in the frontal lobes. We have a change in the balance between old and new parts of the brain. So Virginia, rate your mood for me now.
About a 6.
Okay.
7.
You can go ahead and stop. Open up your eyes for me. How are you feeling?
Bad.
Well, I'm really sorry you're feeling bad, but I'm really glad you're feeling bad because that was absolutely perfect. So I want you to kind of relax, think some happy thoughts. Let's talk a little bit about something else. There's something inherently miswired about the brain.
La investigación de Helen Mayberg es una demostración sorprendente de lo importante que es el lóbulo frontal para la sensación de bienestar.
When you're sad, you don't think straight in just the same way that a depressed patient can't think straight when they're dysphoric and sad and depressed. The issue is healthy people can snap out of it. They can increase their thinking, really suppress the activity of their feeling to work around it.
Does that really mean that there's a level of hardwiredness and that predisposes you maybe never to be depressed or to continue to look at things in a negative way?
It may be that everyone has their breaking point. Everyone, even without a genetic predisposition, without a family history, will have a life event that is so extreme and so negative that the only reaction possible is a breakdown in the way feeling and thinking are modulated in terms of the behavior, so that everybody has the capacity for depression. The issue is that some people come with a lower threshold to have that illness kick in. And I think that the experiments are really one way to try to see what the brain is doing and how healthy people and depressed patients are different.
Estudios como este ofrecen la esperanza de nuevos tratamientos, pero también proponen interrogantes profundas acerca de la relación entre el cerebro y la mente. ¿Es la conciencia que tenemos de nosotros mismos en el mundo el producto de neuronas que relampaguean dentro de nuestra cabeza, o es un misterio a un nivel superior? Aquí recae una de las ideas más controvertidas de Donald Stoss. Tras la observación de personas con lesiones cerebrales, Stoss cree que nuestro lóbulo frontal es la puerta de entrada a un estado de conciencia superior.
The interesting part is that every brain scientist, as they get older, start to deal more and more with the idea of consciousness in the brain. It's the most important question because it does define who we are. And because consciousness means the fact that we ask the question indicates that we're self-reflective. You can't ask that unless you are self-reflective. Can one answer that? Probably not in our lifetime, but there are certain things that seem to me absolutely true. That if you have damage to the frontal lobes, that there is a type of consciousness that is impaired that seems to be at the highest level.
The Moises in Quebec, and it's actually fairly...
La conciencia de sí mismo, uno de los niveles más altos de conciencia, parece estar asociada con nuestros recuerdos, como lo explica Donald Stoss.
To have an awareness of yourself means awareness of yourself in person, place, and time. You have to have awareness of yourself as distinct from somebody else. You have to have an awareness of yourself in relationship to your historical context. You have to have an awareness of yourself in relationship to your future. So the idea of who you are depends to a great degree upon memory.
Hay muchos tipos de memoria, pero Donald Stoss y sus colegas hacen dos distinciones importantes: memoria episódica y memoria semántica.
If you think of the concept episode, that gives you a good framework of what episodic memory is. It really means something that has happened in a particular time, particular place. It usually is something that's very personal to you and has a lot of emotional content, so much so that it becomes part of you. Semantic memory, in contrast, if you think of what the term semantics is, it's knowledge. And semantic memory is really related to the idea of having a knowledge base. It tends to be devoid of emotional contact. It tends to be much more generic. So if I would ask you, what's the capital of Italy, and you said Rome, that's semantic knowledge. That'd be a semantic memory. If I would ask you if you've ever been in Rome and what's the best time you've ever had there, and you told me that, that would tend to be an example of episodic memory. One is much more general. You can't figure out when and where you've learned it. The other is much more personal and intimate and attached to who you are.
What the frontal lobes do is take you from your past to the present to the future. So it is the memory of time. It is the memory of your personal time, of how your past enables you to act in the present and to predict the future. And there has been a great saying about people who have frontal lobe damage, of at least of a certain kind, is that they live in the perpetual present.
Perhaps you can tell us your name.
William Kent Cochran.
And how old are you?
What year is it?
Guess what year it might be. When were you born?
1951.
What year might this be?
94.
2000.
Wow.
So that makes you how old?
49.
49.
Hace 20 años, un accidente motociclístico dañó parte del cerebro de Ken Cochrane, incluyendo su lóbulo frontal. En consecuencia, Ken es incapaz de retener memorias episódicas de eventos personales del pasado. Pero asombrosamente, su memoria semántica o informativa está bien. Es por eso que no tiene problemas organizando libros en una biblioteca local. Por más de 2 décadas, el estado del mundo interno del cerebro de Ken ha sido el punto de los estudios de un investigador en particular llamado Endel Tolving.
Next, we're going to play a sort of a game. I'm going to show a couple of words. It's like a beginning of the sentence, and then the last word of this 3-word sequence is given in fragmented form. That means some letters of the word are missing, and you have to figure out what the word is. And to make it more interesting, we'll bring your mother into this game too, and you two are now like going to compete. Who can get it better, she or you? All right. Mrs. Cochran, come in. Now, I'll show it to you both, and don't blurt it out. You simply say that you got it. You know what it is. Just wait until the other person has a chance to get it too, all right? If you got it, just say so, but don't say the word.
Yeah.
You got it? Mrs. Cochran?
I have no idea. He's way ahead of me.
You're just ordinary, normal person. What is
Mosquito.
it? Mosquito. Very good. Look at what he's doing.
I know.
No, okay. You got it? Say yes.
Yep.
You got it. Mrs. Cochran.
There's no way I can do this.
What is it?
Hedgehog.
Hedgehog. Simple, right?
Oh, it's sure it's so simple.
Isn't it? Hedgehog.
Hedgehog.
Yeah.
Yes, it's very simple.
Okay. Okay, try one more. This is a difficult one.
Yeah.
You got it. Remarkable. What is it?
Centaur.
Centaur, yeah. Aren't you proud of your son?
Yes, I am.
And surprised? How is it possible?
Yes.
No?
I don't know.
Thank you very much.
I can leave now.
La falta de memorias personales del pasado no ha afectado la inteligencia de Ken o su habilidad para aplicar el sistema Dewey de clasificación. Pero en lo que sí ha afectado su vida profundamente es en su habilidad para hacer planes y para pensar respecto a sí mismo en otro lugar y momento.
All right. Now, we're just about finished here. What are your plans for tomorrow?
It's tomorrow Saturday.
Is it Saturday? Are you sure? You can look at your watch.
No, it's Thursday, Friday.
Yeah. So what are your plans for tomorrow?
Go to work, I guess.
Where do you work?
At the library.
Yes, very good. What do you do there?
Reshelve books.
Reshelve books. Excellent. Once you realize that in order to project your life into the future, the only way you can do so is to go by past experience, then it's not surprising at all that Kent has not only difficulty remembering his past, but also trying to make detailed plans for the future. Kent does not really continue mentally in time. He exists at this moment.
It's important to understand that there's a hierarchical organization of consciousness. So if I had an injury where I'm dealing with information strictly on a factual level, that's a level of consciousness. If I move up a step higher, it's a level of self by which we sculpt who we are in the world through our decisions. But then there's another level above and beyond that, which in my personal opinion also includes the frontal lobes, which integrates all of these. And how I, with all of those aspects of myself, fit together. So what memory does is it gives us, in essence, the continuity of ourselves, the continuity of consciousness. You can plan for what's going to happen today, tomorrow, much longer in the future. And that really is the essence of being a human, to have a continuity over a long period of time.
Quizás el misterio de qué nos hace seres conscientes nunca se descubra, pero los estudios de Donald Stoss de personas con lesiones en el lóbulo frontal establece interrogantes interesantes sobre los pensamientos, sentimientos y comportamientos que nos hacen humanos.
The frontal lobes are exceptionally important for the development of who we are as people, of how we see ourselves in the world and how we interpret the world.
It makes me feel good to know that there is something physical that they can actually make a picture of and say, you know, this is your brain when you're depressed and this is your brain when you're not depressed, and there is a real physical difference. I find that incredibly encouraging.
If you could do something, anything at all, what would it be?
Get my memory back.
Get your memory back. Your memory is not very good.
No.
And you miss it.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. But are you very unhappy in your life?
No.
Bye. I was under denial for a long time, but after I did accept it, I felt very relieved that there was a name we could put on it, and I wasn't crazy, because I kept on getting involved with what I call crazy people.
It's hard, but you have to pick up and go on, and we've done it. If he ever comes back, I'll be ecstatic about it, but if not, I still love him, and we'll go on forever.
We need to make that mind and person are reducible to brain, absolutely.
It's clear, and I think we've demonstrated that if you have damage to the brain, there's clearly something that has happened to the person.
Bob Ricker trabajaba como camionero y era un esposo cariñoso. Hace 4 años se resbaló y se cayó desde su techo. Gran parte de su lóbulo frontal sufrió un fuerte daño. Asombrosamente, antes de desmayarse, se subió a su camión y condujo por la ciudad a la hora de mayor tráfico. Aunque la lesión de Bob ha cambiado su vida radicalmente, para quienes no lo conocen bien, parece normal.
I've had some friends, they say that they don't notice anything different. Maybe they're just being polite.
Patients like this look perfectly normal. They'll respond, they'll even seem to enjoy interacting with you and laugh at things. And it's because what the damage to the frontal lobes does not impair. It does not impair what we call the general operations of the brain. The problem is at a higher level.
Hey, sweetie pie. Got to do my list for the day.
Yes, we do.
What do you want me to do? Besides make the bed, vac the floors, dust the furniture, go to the post office.
He certainly, on encountering him, is in the great range of normal. He's not particularly more or less quirky than any of a number of people that we all know. But Mrs. Ricker knows him much better, and she's much clearer about the person he used to be and the person he is now.
Right.
Bob Ricker es un hombre cambiado. Una caída que lesionó una porción de su cerebro ha transformado su personalidad.
It's like you're not 51 anymore. You actually get reversed and you're only 15 again. And I want to play. There's nobody to play with, so she gets it. I can't go out. I can't go down to my friend's house because he's not 15 anymore either. And he's working.
Many times I've said to him, you've got to think about how old you are. But he doesn't. He doesn't have a clue, like you said. He does not feel 51. That's a good thing. I wished I could feel that way. But sometimes depending on my day at work, it's very tiresome to come home to a teenager.
La naturaleza de las cosas, con David Zuzuki. Mi cerebro y yo. ¿Quién soy? ¿Qué constituye el yo que parece flotar en el fondo de todos mis pensamientos conscientes? Los científicos han aprendido mucho sobre la parte del cerebro en la que se procesan los colores. Se transforman los sonidos en sinfonías.
Imagine someone who had previously been warm, interested, supportive, humorous, now is just humorous. Drop the warm, drop the responsive, drop the supportive. Well, that's a big difference when you live with it.
I think that's it, because you're probably watching movies.
I don't have that much to do.
La habilidad de empatía con los demás es provocada por las sustancias químicas presentes en el cerebro. El carácter cariñoso y solidario de Bob se eliminó junto con el tejido que una vez formó parte de su lóbulo frontal. Al estudiar pacientes con lesiones en el lóbulo frontal, Donald Stoss descubrió lo difícil que es explicar científicamente algo tan abstracto como el cambio de personalidad.
You give them IQ tests. IQ tests are often perfectly normal. You give them tests of vision, other things, they're perfectly fine. And yet somehow they are not the same people. And that's what the families describe.
Hi, Dr. Stuss.
How you doing?
How are you
Mr.
today?
Bob, good to see you.
Seeing you again.
And?
Dr. Stuss is my wife, Paula.
Oh, nice to meet you. It's a real pleasure. Good. How are you feeling?
I'm fine.
Good. We got work to do?
Let's go inside so we can be comfortable.
Good. I think it's a gorgeous day.
It sure is.
I want to take some pictures from your past life, and you've given us some of them, and I just want to show them to you. I want you to describe.
I have to say, you have no emotions at all. I am sorry for being frustrated, but it is very hard to deal with a person I don't even know anymore. Tonight I slept on the couch, and after you being away for 5 weeks, it did not bother you in the least. I don't know how to get through to you. You do not show any emotion to me at all. No kisses, no hugs, or I love yous.
La interpretación de nuestros propios estados emocionales y de los que nos rodean es una parte fundamental en casi todas las interacciones humanas. El neuropsicólogo canadiense Donald Stoss hace investigaciones con personas que tienen lesiones en una parte del cerebro que se ubica directamente detrás de la frente. Su trabajo presenta evidencias intrigantes de cómo el lóbulo frontal le da forma a nuestro comportamiento e identidad. Stoss se reunió en Boston con su colaborador Michael Alexander.
Okay, so here's the question I have. We've talked about your patient, we've talked about the patient that was at rounds today. The question is, can you reduce this idea of a change in self, to a personality even, to such a degree based solely on brain damage? In other words, can you reduce mind to brain?
It seems to me that discussions of what makes up a person as opposed to a brain is really better captured in, the language of philosophy and maybe even religion than it is in terms of neurology. I don't think I know the right words to use it, but to describe it. But having said that, yes, I personally believe that if we only understood the transformations that
Los movimientos en danza y sobre los mecanismos que no solo le dan forma a lo que escribimos, sino a cómo lo escribimos, leemos y lo comunicamos a otros.
Good evening. From the high road to the low road. What a difference a day makes.
Pero ¿pueden los científicos explicar los niveles más altos en el pensamiento y comportamiento humano, donde el deseo se transforma en amor, los planes se vuelven acciones y donde las experiencias se vuelven recuerdos? ¿Los científicos pueden explicar qué nos hace ser lo que somos? ¿Ser o no ser? He ahí el dilema.
Hello. Hi, sweetie. Now watching the train. An hour already? All right. Okay, sweetie, I'll be on my way home.
March 19th, 1998, Thursday. Well, it's your big day today for coming home. It has also been 5 weeks today since you have been in the hospital.